Oh, Chapter 6, Lord of the Plains. I hit the wrong button. According to Weevil, there is a powerful marshal that controls the Gyuron land fields, just beyond deep forest of Inzam. Gyuron land is home to the largest beasts. The marshal that controls this area would surely be a welcome addition. And so, leading his growing force, Kyler sets off to convince the ruler of Gyuron land to join him. Red 2 standing by, all for lit, and in the green, welcome back to YuGiOh the Falsebound Kingdom. And guess who the leader of Gyuron land is? That's right, it's Rex Raptor. It was fairly predictable in all fairness. We've got Weevil, we've got Rex. Okay, Weevil's team. Laser cannon armor. So we wanted a couple of those. I'm going to keep Basic Insect on his team because laser cannon armor enables its special attack. Right, it gives it 500. Like the actual equip card does. I thought it gave it 1,000, but that's still pretty solid chip damage in all fairness. A couple of shots of that, and we'll gradually deal some damage, so... Hercules Beetle, we probably want to give those, and... let's give it... Yeah, let's make sure we've got healing. What other insect monsters do we have? No other high-level insect monsters. So, I will keep Weevil's team for thematic purposes for the time being. Just because we can. So Weevil will probably take first watch in the next battle. I think we're pretty well equipped. So we do want to take Weevil with us. There we are. I think that should go pretty well in terms of teams. So we do have one new monster to find at long last. However, we've also got to meet Weevil's monsters, and Rex's, if we can fit them in. Let's get going on the next mission. Anyone that enters these lands must face me! Wait, Kaiba! Aren't you the president of Kaiba Corporation? No, I'm the president of Medicare, you idiot. Of course I'm the president of Kaiba Corporation! Look, I am, but I don't know you. You would if I hadn't lost so early on in the Battle City tournament. I always wanted a chance to take you on. Whoever loses has to work for the other. Are you game? Interesting. I accept your challenge. Not that I'm gonna lose, because I'm Seto Kaiba and you haven't even won a duel on screen. That is actually true. Rex hasn't won on screen, whereas Weevil's only win on screen was against Rex. Alright, so what do we got coming in? Uraby and Uraby. So we'll wait for these enemies to come at us and put in some profiles. Basic Insect made its international debut in Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon and didn't reappear until the Speed Duels era. In Japan, it debuted in starter box theatrical release. It did not appear in any of the volume or booster sets among its appearances, strangely enough. Basic Insect is really not that special, though in this game it does come with a pretty interesting distinction, one it shares with Karibo. If equipped with laser cannon armor, much like Karibo being equipped with Multiply, it will be able to use its special attack to strike all enemies, and this can happen from the outset. While it is not overly powerful, this attack does at least help compensate for that. In the anime, Weevil equipped Basic Insect with Insect Armor with Laser Cannon, an upgraded version of Laser Cannon armor, to defeat Rex in a tournament. There's also a level 2 Power Enhancer he uses against YuGiOh, but Basic Insect is wiped out along with his Insect Army when Mirror Force is used. Alright, Bug Boy, let's see how well you do. I mean, this should be fairly easy picking, so most of the enemies here are reptilian or saurian. Which is a little unusual. Well, it's a little obvious. Now, in this game, it is worth remembering that dinosaurs are dragons. There are only 7 types, and dinosaurs get lumped in with dragons because, as we well know, on the I don't know, let's call it the evolution scale or something that has popped up in YuGiOh, dinosaurs generally wind up becoming dragons because that's actually kind of how it works in the Evol series. Like, for example, there's the Evol Tiles, the Evolsaur, and the Evolzar. The Evolzar, the Xyz monsters, are dragons, and very powerful at that. There we are, good damage. And dead! Well done, Weevil. That wasn't too hard, but pretty basic, all things considered. But still a good job. Credit where credit is due. So, probably wait for a bit. Once again, all these teams are the same. Good heavens. I'm just going to put some profiles in now. I've rambled on enough a bit and we have a lot of monsters to meet. Big Insect made its international debut and only appearance in Speed Duel Starter Deck's Ultimate Predators. In Japan, it debuted and made its only appearance there in Booster 4, so a bit of a one and done creature. But in Big Insect, we have a wonderful demonstration of the complexity and creativity so often shown in the names of early YuGiOh monsters. This one is particularly clever, you see, because as you can tell by the card, it's an insect and it's big. How do they come up with these masterful and witty names? I mean, it must have been just a stab in the dark to come up with this. Look, alright, sarcasm's really all I've got on this one, since Big Insect is very much run-of-the-mill and not really worthwhile in the actual card game. Seems to get decent HP and AP here, so it's reasonably handy at least. But that's the case for a lot of monsters. Big Insect's not much chop. Hercules Beetle made its international debut and only appearance in Tournament Pack 1. In Japan it debuted in Booster 3 and has appeared a few more times. Named after a real-life subspecies of rhinoceros beetle, this monster is not really that flash in the card game on top of being rather hard to get. That being said, it probably fares a little bit better in some ways than the monster for which it is fusion material, Quaggar Hercules. Now, I will have to point out that I'm wrong on this. Originally I thought Quaggar Hercules was the card game's only insect-type fusion monster, but there's one that requires 4 insects and has a ridiculously complex name that I've forgotten. Hercules Beetle itself is probably a bit of a curiosity more than anything else, but it does seem to get good AP, good stats, and I really like the animation for its attack. So while it's not much chop in the card game, I do think this is alright. Megazowler made its international debut and only appearance in Legendary Collection Joey's World. In Japan, it debuted and made its only appearance in Booster 7. Unfortunately, it's another file and forget monster, which I only expressed curiosity about because of this game. In all fairness, this game did get me quite interested in a lot of odd cards, because at the time I got this, a lot of these monsters hadn't appeared in the TCG. Anyway, Megazowler did get to show off in the anime for a bit, but not as much as Rex would have liked. Conveniently, dinosaur-type monsters lost their field power bonus battling fire monsters, allowing flame swordsmen to slay Megazowler. Unfortunately, Red Eye's Black Dragon was a bit much for flame swordsmen. Two-headed King Rex made its international debut in Tournament Pack 2 and showed up in both Yugi and Joey's Mega Packs. In Japan, it debuted in Booster 5. Now, back in Cybersaurus's profile, I made it clear how dumb the issues surrounding this card's release were. Though, let's be honest, this card nearly outclasses Cybersaurus on its own, so you wouldn't really want to waste time fusing it. However, in this game you will want to wind up fusing it. Not because you need to make Cybersaurus, it exists on its own and it's actually a complete disappointment most of the time, but because this is actually needed to make twin-headed Thunder Dragon, since you only get the one Thunder Dragon. It's a bit unusual, but hey, it works and it sort of makes sense. The result still looks weird though. Urubi made its international debut in Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon, reappearing here and there. In Japan, it debuted in Volume 2 and followed this up with the EX Starter Box. Now, Urubi would have been one of the few dinosaurs people really saw in the early days. It wasn't a very common type for some reason. Fortunes did turn around over time as you had archetypes like the Evols and the Durax along the way, but as a pretty basic normal monster, Urubi was just sort of there. It didn't even get to do much in the anime and manga, only serving as a defender which got roasted by flame swordsmen. I have no idea why it's called Urubi, perhaps there is some sort of raptor in real life after which it's named, but in all honesty its original name of Wild Raptor is just fine. Maybe it was a clash with Rex and he's not that egotistical? I mean, compared to Kaiba, nobody's egotistical. Tigerax made its international debut in Tournament Pack 1 and made a few appearances after. In Japan, it debuted in Booster 3, showing up several more times. Now, Tigerax certainly looks menacing, and it does have some pretty impressive art along the way, but in terms of stats it really isn't that special. Its most notable appearance is in Joey's first duel with Mai, where it demonstrates the early season's decision to use elemental strengths and weaknesses. The Flying Harpy ladies, who are of the wind attribute, or wind affinity, however it was stated in those games, would wind up having a big advantage against Earth monsters. This mechanic appeared in many early YuGiOh games, even those which used more conventional card game mechanics, so it could make things a bit fiddly. Okay, that's probably enough time to have had everything sorted out and introduced. We can probably get Kaiba moving as well, because it's going to be a long journey. That is Hercules Beetle up there, just sort of flying along, doing its own thing, and now we're about to wind up facing yet another team. It kind of sucks that these are repeat missions, but sometimes that's just how it goes. Anyway, this is Kutamon. If we liberate this place, we will get a new monster, which interestingly isn't connected to Kaiba at all, but that's how it goes sometimes. You find all sorts of odd monsters along the way. But yeah, going back to dinosaurs, they've been a source of fascination for so many kids. They're just fascinating in general. The way our understanding of dinosaurs has developed over time is absolutely phenomenal. It's genuinely interesting. It's very creative. It's very clever. It's constantly built and allowed us to get a pretty good picture of what life was like way back when, in those far beyond ancient times of prehistory. And the fact that we have so many different fossils is really interesting. Like, early on, as we started discovering and recording those fossil discoveries, things were very strange. Early British paleontology created chimeric abominations, basically. Which is why the Galarian fossils are mix and match critters, because that was really what happened in British paleontology. They'd put bits and pieces from random skeletons together. So it might seem odd, but once again, it's a perfect example of the creators doing their research. We understand so much more about them, and that many dinosaurs would actually have had feathers and things like that. We know a bit more about them. We obviously don't know everything, but the fact that we have so many interesting fossils from so many different creatures, like, let's not forget, in Pokemon, it was in Generation 4 that we got the first actual Pokemon fossils. And we had a Pachycephalosaurus, and, oh, drat, I don't know what Bastiodon is based on. Not off the top of my head, anyway. But then we actually had Archaeopteryx after that, and we had ancient sea turtles, which are a pretty good catch-all explanation for anything. If the Pirates of the Caribbean series has taught me something, sea turtles, mate. Explains everything. At least nautical related. It's always a good explanation, but yeah. So we had that in Caracosta, and then we finally had the T-Rex in the form of Tyrantrum, but we had the Amargasaurus in the form of Amora and Aurorus alongside that, and that's not a very commonly known dinosaur. It looks beautiful, but Aurorus is one of my least favourite Pokemon of all time. I used it and it sucked. It's got the worst defensive typing. It didn't seem to be able to KO anything. It's ridiculously slow. Too many weaknesses. Oh ho! Excuse me, folks. You're the Resistance Army, right? I'm pretty well known in these parts, and I don't like people coming here without asking me first. Alright, he's got the Mook Squad. So that is Mountain Warrior. We will wind up meeting Mountain Warrior later on. I thought we just recruited Tigerax. Oh well. Take that out, and Mountain Warrior should be pretty easy. I don't think Mountain Warrior has actually had a reprint. But yeah, so very first thing we had in terms of fossils was a Trilobite and a Nautilus. A Trilobite and an Ammonite, which is pretty creative, all things considered. Then we had some sort of weird plant thing, which has been described by some as, I quote, some kind of lewd house plant. I'll have to put what Credillia is up on the screen, but the Animalicaris was the inspiration for Anorith and Armaldo, and it just shows... 1 HP, of course! This is like Pokemon. 1 miserable HP. That sucks. Oh well. But yeah, it's not just dinosaurs. There are so many other things which are so creative. There are so many things which are so interesting and just utterly fascinating. Like, consider, if you will, the megafauna of Australia. Creatures like that. Imagine what it would have been like seeing those things. These days we've just got huge-ass spiders. But you've got, like, giant wombats and things like that, and all sorts of other fascinating creatures. I might as well heal my Bikuri box. But there's a lot to learn when it comes to dinosaurs. There is so much about fossils and things like that. I mean, in some places in Australia, it's so geologically stable, the soil is effectively a fossil. There are species of ferns up north which are effectively fossils as well, because they have remained unchanged in the deep rainforest for so many years. And we've even got the coelacanth, which is essentially a living fossil. It was thought to be extinct until they actually found some. There's relicanth for you. Just, there is so much. Like, you get a really good idea of exactly why dinosaurs are so popular with kids. They just look cool, for starters. But then when you branch out and you start discovering all the different fossils and learning everything there is to learn, it's amazing. It's really amazing, and study them. Even on a casual level, study them. Cannot recommend it enough, honestly. And there we are. We have fortunately proved to cut above Tiger Axe. He asked us the question, we gave him the answer.
Ow!
And he likes a cut of our jib. Oh, pretty impressive. Well, then I guess I'll be helping you out. What better way to make up for my rude entrance, right? You just tell me what you want me to do, boss man. And there we are. So now we are venturing across the plains. I think this is the only time we actually visit Gyuron. Just puttering along. Let's see. I will wait to check out our items once we take over this area. Come on, Weevil. Slowly. And there we go. We have landed. The Weevil has landed. Now, I will admit, honestly, that I've actually done something wrong in playing Kaiba's story second. I have wound up recruiting the stronger version of Weevil. What I should have done was played Kaiba's story first and recruited Weevil with lower level monsters. Because as everyone knows, you must always choose the lesser of two Weevils. That really wasn't worth it, was it? But really crummy jokes aside, Weevil should be pretty handy along the way. Like, look at that. Hercules Beetle is effectively a tank. It's, what, level 35, 36, and it has 2,000 HP. You rack it up, you put it on a team with a good marshal that has a high HP stat, and this thing is going to soak up attacks like they're nothing. Because as we know, defense doesn't matter for whatever bizarre reason. Like, Weevil's monsters may not necessarily be super strong, but they can take a hit, apart from basic insect. There we go. Scissor Boomerang, and... you know what? Look, I'm just going to soften them up, and then I'm going to laser everything. I have no lasers, and I will laser to death anybody who says otherwise. Once basic insect gets to move... Yeah, baby dragon really isn't much chop. I wonder if using a special attack puts the monster further back into turn order. Alright, laser time! There we go. It was the principle of the thing. But yeah, setting things up like that, you do get a few bonus points for using a special attack, I believe. Oh, not quite. But Armored Lizard gets its hide melted. And splat. Oof, that looked like it hit right in the crotch. That's not good. But there we are. Weevil has actually proved quite serviceable this mission. Yeah, level 38, and that HP is amazing. Well done, Hercules Beetle. What are Weevil's stats? We don't need those. Okay, so he's good with his action points. That'll be fairly handy. I probably don't need that many more of those because I have heaps of them. But let's check what's interesting down here just to be on the safe side. It's always nice to know. Monster Reborn, Shadow Spell, we don't need Electro Whip. But we've got a very nice long leisurely stroll for Robotic Knight, just plodding across the wastelands. Any monster that is Wasteland adept will get a power-up here. So it's just sort of wandering along, happy as you please. Good old robotic knight. Probably should make a bit of room for Tiger Axe's profile. If I haven't done so already, we can probably have stashed that in there earlier. But yeah, so dinosaurs was something I was interested in when I was a kid. The solar system was something I was interested in when I was a kid. I remember a Magic School Bus game that was set on, that had levels on all the different planets and taught you about things like that. Yeah, we did get the Magic School Bus books here. Fairly understandable, honestly. Things like that just add a little bit of extra something to your education. Like, make it fun. That's really the important thing for education. Find ways to make people enjoy it. Some things are going to be a bit different these days, and it would probably be interesting seeing how much science has moved on. But I suppose I find science so fascinating. Because it's always evolving, it's always developing, it's always making new discoveries. You kind of have to acknowledge that your theories could well be proven wrong. But you also have to defend them against the possibility of being proven wrong. It's like, okay, here's this counterpoint. That's okay, I've got this data. You keep building on your theory, you keep researching and getting more information as you go, and things gradually just change. Hey, 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 hey! The Dino Squad is coming through! But yeah, basically, science just constantly evolves, develops, changes, and requires us to have a little bit more critical thinking. It's almost like you do have to admit sometimes that you're going to be a bit wrong. Which is actually kind of understandable. And it's fair enough because, well, to be honest, your theory will eventually be replaced as new knowledge comes into existence. But that's okay because, in essence, you are laying the groundwork. I believe it was Sir Isaac Newton who said, "If I have seen far, it is because I stand on the shoulders of giants." Think about how much we have learned from previous scientists. Like, the Greek scientists, the mathematicians, their geometry, even their basic knowledges of medicine and things. We still have a strong basis in a lot of our knowledge today. The knowledge of the Greeks was tested by the great Islamic scholars. They kept the ancient knowledge alive. They built on that. They tested it to see if it held up. What didn't was replaced with new knowledge. And then the Renaissance came along. Things like that. It's why it fascinates me, because eventually you'll keep building, and yes, your theory might ultimately be proven wrong. It might not be the best. It might be the best theory at the time, but it's then replaced. But that's okay, because you've done your best at the time and you contribute to the broader understanding of society. You can't just leave your arguments, you can't just sort of insulate your argument against any form of criticism, because that doesn't work. The basics of it are, if your argument can't be proven wrong, it can't be proven right either. You can't just keep protecting yourself against all those other arguments, against any counter-arguments. And it's important to have everything verified too. There's got to be official process, really. You can't just say something, it's got to be tested by others. Which is a bit of an advantage, because people can often pick up things that you might miss, which gives you the advantage to refine the theory. And because everything has constantly evolved, it's constantly developed and changed as we discover more facts. Like, look at how much medical science has advanced, for example. It's genuinely fascinating. I mean, every time there's news about a celebrity going for a boob job or getting Botox or a little bit of work on their face and things like that, remember that plastic surgery actually developed out of war. Plastic surgery came about to repair injuries suffered by soldiers during war. Like, for example, burn scars, chemical scars, things like that. Ironic, I would not recommend it as a means of enhancing our medical knowledge. But the First and Second World Wars, with their need for, call it meatball surgery, I've watched a lot of MASH, did improve our medical knowledge, and then we've constantly built on that in order to be able to help people better. And as science develops and gains the ability to help people more and more, I think it's truly wonderful. And there we go. Darn, it didn't even faze him! You call that an attack? Why don't you just admit defeat and save yourself a beating? Alright, we're probably fighting for the same thing anyway. Exactly. Try to keep up and stay out of my way. Well, there we are. We have two fairly basic characters who've tagged along. Rex and Weevil, who are kind of joke characters in the anime. They got dangerous for a bit in the Doma arc, but aside from that, they weren't really much chop. Anyway, our ranks have swelled, and so has Kaiba's ego, because he's Kaiba. Anyway, we have a really, really tough one coming up next. I'll have to do a bit of research, see what we've got, but until next time, this is Red 2, returning to base.